Hello everyone. Today I've come out to visit a few places around Thetford, two of which I've done paranormal investigations at before, and I thought I'd come first to a brand new place to me. I've never been here before. I'm actually in Brandon Country Park at the moment, which again I've never been to, and I've actually come to the Brandon Mausoleum, also known as the Edward Bliss Mausoleum. Now this place dates from the mid-1800s. Edward Bliss was a very wealthy man who lived in the area. I've got a funny feeling he had a title as well, and he made his wealth from selling flint to the military during the Napoleonic War. And I always find that kind of thing fascinating when visiting places all around the country, especially from historical standpoints, is you know, a lot of places do have ties. We've investigated plenty of Napoleonic forts and places that were used during those wars, and obviously coming here, the fella that sold a lot of the flint, it's all sort of tied in together, and it's fascinating. I find it fascinating anyway, visiting a lot of places that sort of link together through different historical figures and especially different buildings. But either way, Edward Bliss died in 1845, and he was interred in the mausoleum alongside his wife, and his estate was handed over to his nephew, who was called Henry Bliss. Now there's a bit of confusion here as to whether it was his nephew or his son, who was also called Henry, so it could have been one or the other, who had somewhat of a fascination with collecting skulls. Now as you can see, I do like my skulls, and it would seem obviously people throughout history have had similar fascinations. I don't know why I like them. I suppose it's a skull is the most familiar part of a person, is their face, and I suppose my interest in them is that, you know, it's the sort of the rawest form. You know, you take everything away, and at the end of the day we are all very similar looking skulls underneath. Bit morbid, but it's obviously people throughout history have had similar interests and similar fascinations. I don't collect skulls though, I must put that out there. However, it's said that Henry Bliss is the ghost that's been seen around the mausoleum here. Now a lot of people that have sighted this ghost have said that he appears to be carrying an oil lamp, but on closer inspection it's actually a skull he's holding that's being lit up from the inside. It's a bit of an obscure little story there, but it's actually quite well documented. I don't know how much of the sightings here are sort of local legend, or how much of it's genuine sightings that people have had, but it's certainly mentioned in a lot of online texts, websites regarding the paranormal, and certainly a lot of books I've read about the ghosts supposed to be sighted here. It's obviously supposed to be the ghost of Henry Bliss, who had this fascination with skulls, and he's seen carrying a skull lantern. Don't know how much belief to put into it, but it's even so well documented that it even gets a mention on a little information board here. Local legend says Baron Barretto, son of Edward Bliss's nephew, was an eccentric who collected human skulls and lit candles in them. His ghost is said to have been seen here wearing knee breeches and a deerstalker. So there we are. It's I do love it if ghost stories are even included on the information boards. I'm assuming a few paranormal investigations have been carried out here. I don't know whether they've been fruitful, whether anything's popped up. I've certainly never investigated here. Like I say, this is my first time visiting. Maybe somewhere I investigate in the future, but today I just wanted to do a few daytime visits to some places. But it's really fascinating little place. It's again, a mausoleum is essentially the burial place for people, you know, almost like a chapel, and this place is huge really. You think it was just two people that were interred in here, Edward Bliss and his wife, and the work and the craftsmanship that goes into this essentially giant tomb is extraordinary, you know. Again, it's sort of the whole Victorian period of people probably having more money than sense, but it's fantastic. I really like it. Certainly recommend visiting if you're out in this area at some point. In fact, the whole of Brandon Country Park, I did have a little wander through, obviously to get here. Really nice little area. Obviously, you know, it's in the middle of Thetford Forest, so you've got plenty of trees. It's a bit drizzly today, so I'm thankful of that. I've got trees to shelter under. But yeah, that's basically all I wanted to come here for really, just to have a little look at it, see it for myself, and share the little ghost story here with you. I'm going to head off now to the second place I'm going to be visiting today, which is somewhere I have investigated before. I've not actually been there for probably getting on for a year, so I always like to, you know, take trips back to places, just see if they've changed at all. And of course there is the chance you may experience or see something paranormal if you keep your eyes and ears open. So I'm going to head over there now and join me when I'm there. So I've just arrived at the second location for today, which is Weeting Castle. Now, if any of you have followed us for a little while, you've probably seen we've done a few investigations here. The first time I ever actually visited here was back in 2011, I think. It might have been 2012. We were going to do an episode here in our first series, but never came back to do the night investigation, so we've just got a little bit of footage from today. And it was then I actually recorded just a bit of an odd anomaly on camera, which I'll go into a bit later. Now, although it's called Weeting Castle, it is more of a fortified manor house. It was built more so for display of power and just grandeur more so than any kind of defence. There's not a lot of it that remains today. There's a few walls in ruin. I'm currently in what would have been the Grand Hall, but it's quite a nice place, especially in the summer. It's a nice little place to come and visit, and yeah, it also has a bit of a reputation for hauntings as well. So I'm currently standing outside of the ice house now. This was a much later edition. This wasn't part of the original medieval castle. I think it was might have been the Victorian period, somewhere 1800s. It was handed over to the local manor house, and they constructed this basically to store ice in that was collected from the moat. Obviously, being slightly underground, it's nice and cool in there, so the ice wouldn't melt. Nice little feature here. And this is one of the areas that supposedly has quite a bit of activity in. It was actually here on my first visit back in 2011 that I recorded a strange anomaly on camera. Of course, it's impossible to say for sure what that could have been. I remember we recorded in about November, December time, so it was absolutely freezing cold out. I don't think there was any insects about. I think they were all killed off by the frost and everything. And that's the only feasible thing I think that anomaly could have been, was some kind of insect. It may really be nothing. It may be, I don't know. It doesn't look like dust or debris to me. It's certainly not anything like a bat. So I really don't know what that little anomaly there could have been, but that was the first time I recorded something out of the ordinary here. And we also, on our investigation we did in 2016 for our fourth series, we had one of our ex-investigators, Mitchell, spend a bit of time in the ice house on his own, and he said he felt incredibly uncomfortable in there. And I mean, I've spent time in there myself as well, and it is quite a, because it's so low, I mean, I haven't got a light with me, so you're probably not going to be able to see it in there very well, but it's very low. You can't stand up in there. It's very cramped, especially in the dark. It is a bit unnerving because your only exit is here. You know, your mind plays tricks on you. You think, what if something comes and blocks my only exit? You know, I'm trapped in there. So it was by its design quite an unnerving little area. But whilst he was in there on his own, he recorded what sounds like an EVP. Now again, that's quite interesting, and the fact it's strange the ice house would be haunted, because like I say, it was never part of the original castle. It was literally used for storing ice, so it's not really a place that you'd expect there to be paranormal activity, but it does seem to be sort of an area that does have certain things going on in it. What reason that might be, I don't know. It could be that, again, it's that thing of disturbing the land around places. We've seen a lot before with old buildings. Any alterations to the buildings sometimes releases energy and creates hauntings. Quite a lot of old buildings, sometimes you'll hear stories of builders coming in to renovate, and they'll be scared off by paranormal activity, or alterations or renovations be made, and the place suddenly has a bout of, you know, poltergeist activity. And I wonder if it could be, I mean, this is just speculation of course, I wonder if it could be a similar sort of thing here, that, you know, when that was built, it somehow disturbed the land that had been around here for, you know, hundreds of years prior, and it released, you know, created a bit of a haunting. I don't know, merely speculation. Now, I know a lot of people have come here in the past and they've said they've recorded some, you know, brilliant EVPs, and so we've got one of the ice house. I don't think, to be honest, we've been go back to the main hall area, which is usually the hub of where we set up our equipment and everything. I don't think we've recorded any EVP around here particularly. Funnily enough, an area that a friend of mine had investigated around here was around the edge where all the trees are grown up. And he said that that area he got some strange EMF spikes. So again, it was all part of the castle. You've got to think as well that areas around the outside of the castle would have been used for livestock. So this whole little area here, I know it's got a moat around the edge, but everything within the moat would have been used for the purpose of the castle. So it's feasible that any area around here could be haunted. Because again, whilst we were filming for our 4th series, we set up a motion sensor on the little step over there, and that would have presumably, from what I gather, have been a doorway of some sort. I don't know for sure. That's what it looks like to me. It would have been a doorway, so we thought, what a great place to set up a motion sensor. See if we can capture any kind of residual energy moving in and out of the door. And it actually triggered halfway through the night. We were in the main castle, in the main hall, and all of a sudden the motion alarm went off, and we came running over to it. I'd really like to see that tonight, if that's at all possible.
There we go. Did you hear that?
The alarms went off.
The alarm went off.
Right, let's go.
I thought I told you it's not right there. The alarm just went off with that. That was us. But we just, yeah, that shouldn't have been us. We were crucible that before.
There we go. If you set that alarm off just then, can you do it again, please? Whatever you just did. Couldn't find any reason for it going off. Obviously we're in a little bit of countryside here, so you've got to take into account rabbits and foxes and badgers and small animals like that, even little mice. But we didn't see anything, and for the whole of the night we didn't really see any wildlife. Not to mention, if it was something that had scurried in here, bearing in mind the fences all weren't here at the time, that's been added in the last couple of years, but yeah, if it was a little rodent or something that had been in here, it would have had to have climbed out somewhere, so I'm sure we would have seen it. So that was a bit strange. Could have been a complete fluke, could have just been one of those things they triggered, but yeah, that was a bit strange. But as for the 2016 investigation, that's really all we had happen here. Now, I was last here in the summer of last year. A little bit of behind the scenes facts here. We were actually filming over at East Somerton Church in Norfolk, and we realised that place wasn't really suitable for a nighttime investigation because of how many people. It's really beautiful hot day, so many people on bike rides and all that, so we thought we can't really investigate here. So I had the idea of, why don't we stop off at Weeting Castle on the way home and do an investigation. So that was actually filmed on the same day as the East Somerton one, and I wasn't expecting a huge amount, to be honest, because it's been very hit and miss here in the past, but I thought, give it a go, you know, at least we've done an investigation then, we haven't wasted the whole day, sort of thing. And it started off very quiet. We were in this area I'm going to walk into now, which is, I mean, this was basically a little storage area from what I understand. I don't think this was living accommodation. Obviously you've got the top floors up there that have completely fallen down, but I think this was more of a kind of storage room. Didn't really have anything in here. We were probably here for about 20 minutes. Absolutely nothing happening, didn't feel weird, didn't have any kind of, you know, anything going on. And all of a sudden I heard the sound of what sounded to me like someone talking off in the distance. I thought someone had just entered the castle. You know, we were here probably 10 o'clock at night. I thought, oh, someone's obviously come over to visit, maybe they've seen our torchlights or something. So we all exited this little area and began the walk around the castle to where the entrance is. And it was then that myself and James both heard the sound of metal, like a rattling sound, almost sort of chains, kind of to an extent. So we thought, oh, that must be the gate. So we thought, because there's a metal gate here to enter, we thought, oh well, someone has come to join us then. Walked over there, absolutely nothing. No one was here, and there is again, it is one way in and one way out of the castle through that the long trackway I walked up, so no one can come here and disappear in 15-20 seconds. That's impossible, because you'd be able to see them somewhere. And again, a bit later on, I heard a voice again, and I knew at that point, but I know there's no one here because I can see there isn't. So I decided to go and do some EVP recordings. And that was then, well, shortly after that, that we all experienced one of the probably quite moving, emotional things we've ever had on an investigation. we were sort of just standing about. I think I'd just finished listening through some recordings we'd done, and all of a sudden we heard the sound of what we could only describe as a newborn baby, or a very small baby, crying.
What was that?
What was that? What was that? That was a baby, wasn't it? Something with it. That come from out like behind me.
That wasn't far away. It was just a one-off. That was a horrible impression. But that's all it was. It was just a one little cry, and it was capped at the end. There was no. It was so. It sent chills up my spine. I know Sophie, because she's got a young daughter. She was especially moved by it, because it's like the thought of a young baby crying on its own was, you know, quite distressing. But there was nowhere it could have come from. We were aware, I think there's a pig farm in the distance. Wouldn't surprise me if there's sheep and lamb and stuff somewhere nearby as well. But this was so close. This was within the Grand Hall. It was so distinguishable, and we actually managed to record it as well. So obviously there's proof, and you can kind of see and compare it. And we compared it to various different animals, foxes, different types of deer, all sorts of animals, badgers. We compared it to see if it, you know, resembles any kind of wildlife sounds, and it doesn't, from what I can see. And maybe someone else has got a different opinion on that and say it does sound like something, but the closest it does sound to me is a small baby crying. It's, yeah, even talking about it now, it does give me the chills, really, because it wasn't the fact it was just the noise, it was the emotions that came with it. And whether that's the emotions that, you know, the sound of hearing a small child cry, did that trigger the emotions in us, or was there an energy that came with it? But from that night, it did seem to me that whatever is occurring here just comes through in small little bursts. You just get a little snippet of something every now and again. There was no interaction. I've never really had much interaction here with anything. It just seems to be that occasionally, for whatever reason, maybe the conditions are right, maybe, I don't know, the planets align, and you just get a little snippet of the past come through and replay, most of the time in audible form. This is certainly somewhere to come back to in the future. Like I say, I've not investigated here for the last year, pretty much, so I definitely want to come back. I think maybe doing stuff, because like I say, the activity seems to be coming just very, very small bursts, like a sound bite, essentially, is how I'd describe it. I think it's going to be a case of going in for the long haul here, set up a load of cameras, load of audio recording equipment, and just sit and wait. I don't think really you can entice things out here. I think it's far more residual and far more sort of stone tape hauntings. What's that? What's flying me here? Oh dear. Yeah, it seems like that. So I think it's a place you've got to stake out, sit and wait, really. But it's definitely one we're going to return to in the future. So I'm just heading up to the final place of the day, and this is somewhere I've not been for probably about 5 years, I'd imagine. We've filmed here again on our 4th series, and that is the Warren Lodge, which is just outside of Thetford. Now, I distinctly remember filming here the last time because it was absolutely pouring down with rain. We did the Thetford Priory day shoot, and then we came here to do a shoot here as well, and we were absolutely drenched. I don't know how we got through the day. I don't mean just a shower like it has been on and off today. It was absolutely torrential, but we braved through. So yeah, I've not got fond memories of this place. Now, the lodge itself was built in the 13th century by the monks from Thetford Priory, so it's a very, very old building, and there's not actually a huge amount of them left, especially in this condition, so it's quite a special place, really. Now, the purpose of the building was that it was somewhere that warreners, people who were employed to catch live game, usually rabbits, would actually come and shelter and rest, and there's also able to store their catches in here. So there would have been 2 stories of it originally. I think the top floor was where the warreners would have actually lived and slept, and the bottom floor was where they would have stored all their catches, mostly to keep them out of the way of scavenging animals such as foxes, But there was also a huge rivalry between poachers, and again, keeping them in here would have kept them out of the way from rival poachers stealing them. Now there's actually a couple of ghost stories attached to the Warren Lodge itself. Considering it's next to a fairly main road and it's right on the edge of Thetford Forest, there's a lot of people riding bikes, going for walks around here, so yeah, people do pass it all the time. Having said that, it is just essentially a very small brick building, so it's quite odd that there's two separate ghost stories attached to it for what is essentially quite a small little area. Now the first ghost story here is that of the phantom white rabbit with glowing red eyes. It's been mentioned here for hundreds of years, so it's fairly old tradition, and it's said that should you look this rabbit in its eyes, you will have but 1 year to live. Very similar, I suppose, to sort of the Black Shuck legend. There's also many other different legends around the world with sort of phantom animals that are omens of death, and yeah, don't look them in the eyes is the running theme with a lot of them. I'm not aware of any genuine sightings of this, and it's been speculated by many people that the origin of the story itself is actually was created by the Warreners who worked and lived here. Obviously, because there was this big poaching rivalry, in creating a ghost story, and bearing in mind this is back in the times when people were very superstitious and they would have believed things such as this, creating the story of a phantom white rabbit would have probably scared many people away from the area and, you know, made them a bit dubious about coming here to try and invade on their territory. No facts to back that up, but it certainly does make sense, and that's what you know, the general consensus is where this story may have originated from. Although there probably is no truth to the phantom white rabbit story, and it probably was just concocted to keep people away from the area, I do find it interesting because I've been to a number of places around the country that have similar stories. One that sticks in my mind was Hadley Castle down in Essex, which was a big spot for smugglers back in the day, and there's a ghost story there of a white lady. And again, a lot of people believe that was created by the smugglers in an attempt to keep people away from the areas that they were hiding their stolen loot. So it's fascinating really how many of these quite well-known legends and quite, you know, stories have originated from people, you know, creating these legends and stories to keep people away from areas. I find that quite interesting. I do wonder how many other stories that have popped up here and there have similar origins, you know, people creating ghost stories. I mean, there's no reason to believe that maybe where I was earlier at the Brandon Mausoleum, who knows, maybe at some point in history someone around the area didn't want people going there and created this story of the gentleman carrying the skull lantern to keep people away. Who knows? It's certainly plausible. And like I say, it does seem to happen quite a lot. There's been a few other places I've visited that have got stories that were clearly designed to keep people away from areas. Now the other story here, which is slightly more disturbing, is that of the Faceless Man. Again, it could have originated similar sort of way as a white rabbit, a story or legend that's come up to try and keep people away from here. However, I think this story, from what I gather, seems to have more recent origins. I think there's even been some fairly recent sightings of it. I know on a couple of websites I've looked at, they imply that this faceless man has been seen fairly recently, you know, going in the last 50 years or so, so it's probably not related to the whole Warreners phantom rabbit. But yeah, there's not a lot said about this faceless man. It just seems to be a man that's, well, a spectral man that's seen around here. That's been seen by a few visitors. Completely normal looking man with no features whatsoever on his face. Yeah, bit of a mystery, that one. Not sure where that story comes from, whether there's any truth behind it, but it's certainly a fairly well documented one. You know, there's a lot on that particular story. It's one of the more well-known, you know, legends around the Thetford area. But like I mentioned, we did an investigation here back in 2016, and like I said, it was pouring down with rain when we done our day filming, so we actually left and came back at a later date to do an investigation here. And I've got to say, we didn't have anything happen whatsoever. It is very, very quiet, especially because it is fairly in the middle of nowhere. So there's a big main road nearby, so you do get a lot of traffic noise, but at night there's not really any dog walkers or cyclists coming around the area, so you are kind of on your own out here. And I did wonder at the time if maybe that would give it a bit of spooky atmosphere, give it, you know, but it didn't really. Didn't really feel anything here. And the thing is, you can't get into the lodge itself. Go to the doorway here. So as you can see, that's you've got the bar here that prevents you from actually getting inside. But you can see up the top they've put a new roof on. That's obviously not original. I'm assuming it's. I mean, it could be health and safety reasons you're not allowed inside. I suspect it's probably more the fact they don't want people loitering in here and doing drugs. But yeah, obviously you can't get in, so we just investigated the area around the outside. We put some recording equipment through the windows and stuff, but we didn't pick up anything at all. So a bit unfortunate. I don't think it's. Ooh. Got a little furry friend. Yeah, I don't think it's particularly somewhere we'll come back to investigate again. Like I say, there's not really enough to investigate here, and at least one of the stories probably has no basis in truth. But it's certainly, you know, it's certainly interesting coming here and certainly having a look into the ghost stories. It's probably going to be the last vlog type video for a little while. Obviously we're hoping to get our new series out, Series 7, which we've been doing a little bit of work on recently. We've got 2 episodes filmed so far. However, the more vlog type videos I was doing, I suddenly realised, I thought, oh, I haven't actually filmed that much for the new series yet. So we're going to be focusing on some, you know, stuff for that over the next few months. But there'll still be weekly videos coming, ghost ops videos, got a few documentaries in the pipeline, so still going to be weekly videos. It's just the vlog type stuff I'm just going to put on hold for a bit so I can focus on you know, the full episodes and bits and pieces like that. As always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week for our next video. Take care, everybody.